Hello everyone, in this video we're going to have a look at increment and decrement. So increment, what that basically is, if I declare a variable called x and I assign it a value of 0 and now I want to increment that. Alright, so there's an increment operator that is like this. Okay, x plus plus. Okay, so simple. So if I say cout x now, it's going to change the value of x by 1. So it's going to increase it by 1 and it's going to be assigned automatically to x. Alright, so this is now I'm going to run it and I'm going to show you how the value of x changed. So if I run this program right now and you can see that it's actually 1. Alright, so we incremented x by 1. So if I have another x plus plus here, then you're going to see that it actually does also increment it again, and it's x is 2 now. Okay, so now that's that. And if I want to decrement, then I can just say minus minus. So you can see that, well, if I run it again, then it's going to be 1 because it incremented x by 1. Alright, and then it incremented that again once, so it's 2 now. Then we decrement x, so now it comes back to 1. Okay, we decrement by 1, so then x is 1. So that's what it is. Now what I want to do is actually I want to introduce you to the concept of post and pre. Okay, this is really confusing for beginners especially. Okay, what post increment and pre-increment and post decrement and pre-decrement, what that means. Okay, so the thing is, now you know the simple, let me just delete that. Okay, so we just have 2 now. So this is basically what we just did here is actually called post increment. Alright, this is actually post increment and decrement. So and decrement, I'm just going to now write it post, alright, because they're both post. Post means afterwards. If you want to actually do a pre-decrement and increment, pre-dec and inc, alright, what you're gonna do is you're going to say, you're gonna put the signs first and then you're going to do x, and you're gonna put the minus signs first and then you're gonna do that. Now these do have a difference though. Okay, so if I were to show you, okay, so if I comment these out right now, okay, by the way, let me just run it first. Let me just delete these and run it so we can see what the answer actually is. So the answer right now is 0, and that's because x is 0, x is 1 here. After it runs this line, x becomes 1 and then it decrements x, so it becomes back to 0. However, if I were to actually use a pre-decrement instead of a post-decrement, okay, so let me delete this one. Well, if I put a pre-decrement and I run, what you're gonna see is that it gives us a 0, which is the same value. So now how is this different? Because both of them gave the 0 answer. Now here's the thing, when we actually, right, I'm gonna comment this out, I'm gonna comment this line, sorry, this line I'm going to comment out, I'm going to comment out this line, I'm going to comment out that line, and I'm going to comment out that line. Alright, now if we actually put it in here, okay, the difference, let me just tell you briefly the difference, by the way. So if in post decrement, what it does is that it when the compiler is like traversing through the code, then it's gonna assign the value of x first. Okay, it's going to take in the value of x and then it's going to increment it. So it's a two-step process. First it reads the value of x and then it assigns it, or it does whatever it wants with it, and then it increments it. Alright, so if I cout x plus plus right now, okay, and if I run this, what you're going to see is that in the compiler it's actually 0. But how? Because I mean, we incremented x, why doesn't it show 1? It shows 0. Well, that's because in the post increment, as I said, it's a two-step process. The first step is that it takes the value of x and it couts that first. Alright, and then once it has done doing a C out, right, when it's done printing x, then it's going to increment x by 1. Alright, so that's what it is. So if we actually come in here and then see out x, and we print x right now, what we're going to see is that it's going to print 0 and 1. So meaning that in the first printing it actually printed out the value of x, and then once it's done printing the first one, then it increments it, and then we asked it to print it in the second, print it the second time. So there we see that it actually is 1, that it's actually 1. So what happens is that it's a two-step process. First it couts x, and then it does this. I'm going to delete this line. Now in order to denote the difference, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that I'm going to put the plus plus before the x. Right, and now I'm going to run it, and if I run it now, you can see that it's actually 1, unlike before when it was actually 0. So when we're using a pre-increment, of course it's a two-step process. So if you look, what happens first in the first step is that it increments the x. Alright, first it increments the x. So these two signs, if they are placed before, it means that you have to first increment the x, and then you have to see out the x. Alright, so that's just the thing. We can also put a minus minus. Alright, and if I run it, it's going to be -1. So that's just the difference between pre-increment and post-increment. The difference is that post, it just does something with x first, and then it increments it. Right, and say with pre, if you want something done to the x first before the x is used or the variable is used, then you use pre-increment. Right, that's just a bit of a difference and some confusion as regards to pre-increment and post-increment that I wanted to clear out. And another thing to note is that if you have a variable, then this operator, the pre and post increment and decrement operators, they only work on them, on variables. So if I had a constant like a 7, then you'd see that it's going to give us an error, because we cannot decrement 7 because it's not a variable, it's an actual number. So it only works on variables. Okay, so that's what it is. You can use these in loops, you can use it in if statements. The thing is that post increment, it will first do the x first. So if I have another variable, by the way, I'm going to say that int y is equal to x plus plus. Alright, and if I see out y, you're going to see that it's actually, you know, just looking by the concept x plus plus, so y is going to be 0, it's not going to be 1. So if I run this, and you can see y is actually 0, it's not 1. It's because it first assigned the value of x into y, and then it incremented x, and it never increment y. So if we were actually to do a pre-increment, then you're going to actually see that it first increments x and then it assigns it to y. And yeah, sure, that's what it is. Thanks for watching.